Over to you for a couple of reflections before we kick off the broader discussion. So please, Dirk.
Yeah, thank you very much, Johan. I will reflect during the next minutes to come about a social contract for sustainability, a social contract for the great transformation towards a low-carbon economy. Professor Rubia has been mentioned, and this is a necessary social contract between science and society. Björn Stixon has been talking about a social contract between business and society. Jill Jäger has been reflecting on the important factor of human behavior, which we need to understand better. The reflections about the social contract towards sustainability is about that. It's about the human factor and how to shape the behavior of people. In our analysis, in our report of the German Advisory Council on Global Change on the great transformation towards sustainability, on the great transformation towards low-carbon economy, we emphasized and analyzed different arenas of change, which you are seeing here. It's about innovation, it's about norms and values, the international context, policies, etc., etc. If you look at these arenas, you understand easily that this great transformation is much bigger than innovation alone. It's much bigger than only getting the incentives and the prices right, which we have been discussing already. The great transformation is about profound, fundamental, societal change in all our societies. And we emphasize three mechanisms which we think drive the whole system of arenas of change, which you can see here, towards sustainability. And the first mechanism which we see and which we analyze is that, of course, we have to think about transformative policies, policy regimes. We talked about education, economic policies, innovation policies, all these kind of stuff. So this is one of the mechanisms which can help to drive the whole system of arenas of change. There's a second element which is very important because we cannot steer the whole system. We cannot govern from the top, the whole system. It's about co-evolutionary processes, which we need to understand better. This is where science is coming in. We need to understand the mutual reinforcing mechanisms between these arenas, positive and negative feedbacks, of course. And then the third element, which we think is driving the whole system of arenas of change, is the social contract, where we argue that it is needed. And we draw on arguments from Immanuel Kant, of course, from Rousseau, from David Hume. And they are all arguing that if you reflect on and observe civilizational shifts in our societies, it's always based on this kind of social contract, a consensus within societies that we need to change direction. No? Hume Keller have been talking about narratives yesterday, new narrative. This social contract is something like this. Examples are the emergence of human rights. It can only work when something like a social contract is really emerging and existing. Democracy, the abolition of slavery, the abolition of child labor work. Naki and myself, we presented our great transformation stuff in South Africa. We discussed the social contract for the abolition of apartheid, of course. Social contract. So the social contract implies that there is emerging legitimacy for change, that the diffusion of new ideas and new narratives is moving forward. It implies stability of expectations. Currently, we are in an in-between situation. We are discussing here about sustainability and how to reorganize the whole economy. I have been participating in another conference about the economic crisis, financial crisis and debt. No one mentioned the sustainability issue. So we do not have still this consensus, this social contract for sustainability, and this means that there is no stability of expectation. So a social contract implies this. Nina Fedorov yesterday asked, can we and how are we changing human behavior? My positive and optimistic perspective here would be to argue that we have been seeing enormous, incredible changes in human behavior in the past already. Again, it's democracy, it's human rights, abolition of slavery. We are talking now about a new shift in human behavior. We can learn from the past. I compare the era of sustainability with the era of enlightenment. And again, I would draw on Immanuel Kant, because Immanuel Kant, in one of his writings, he's saying, and I'm citing first in German because it's classical German for those who understand German, then I will translate. He says the essence of enlightenment is die Umänderung der Denkungsart der Menschen. This is the fundamental shift in perception, in thinking, and mental maps of people. This implies that a social contract, a new social contract, can organize a new framework and push activities and behavioral dynamics into a new direction. My second point, which I wanted to make very briefly, is something which has already been formulated by Johan yesterday. Johan, because you said you already formulated where the elements for this social contract are. I only summarize here what you said yesterday, because you said we need a culture of attentiveness and stewardship for the Earth system. This is new. We need a culture of obligations towards future generations, for long-term thinking and long-term policy orientation, a culture of participation and democracy to bring people in. If not, it will not work. And last but not least, it needs to be fair. This is what Tom Schelling has been saying yesterday. We cannot solve sustainability and green issues without fairness and looking to the most vulnerable. So these are the elements which we need to have in mind. And my last point here is about global cooperation, because this social contract at the end of the day needs to be global. So how to organize that? What we need to have in mind is something which we have not discussed yesterday. We are in a world with tectonic power shifts. We are moving towards a non-Western world order. This is a huge driver of global change. We came from a G8 world, we organized a G20 world, we actually are now in a G0 world. We see stagnation in any field of international politics, G0 constellation, a blockade of power struggles. So we need to invest in overcoming this. And my last sentence is, international cooperation is not only about politics, it is not only about smart incentives, this is what Professor Nordhaus argued yesterday, it's very important, but it's also about specific ingredients which any kind of cooperation at any scale, local to global, is based on. In my institute, we did a study on these basic ingredients of cooperation. These are the 6-7 factors which you can see in any discipline. We went through 25 disciplines here, also beyond political sciences and economics, to see whether we do have a consensus in science about the basic ingredients of cooperation. Here they are. And imagine now the power shifts. We need to reinvest to build these basic factors of cooperation. We need to reinvest in trust. We need to reinvest in joint narratives between old and new powers. We need to reinvest in reputation of actors, because in the situation of global power shifts, we are currently in this G0 constellation. So this is what I wanted to tell you briefly. Thank you very much for listening.